Good evening. This is my weekly reflection in the other and canopy unity. It speaks about the creative transformative stage phase is to encourage creative constructive action towards greater understanding and respect, to take responsibility to encourage positive change. In the story, the gold coin, one was generous to fix the cabin and offered the gold coin back to Donna Jessica and help her to fix the cabin. I have read I have read so many adjectives that can be used to describe a person. This is very interesting and this will encourage a person to feel a lot more better about themselves. When you use this adjective to describe somebody, you get them to feel a lot more better at themselves. The teachers can encourage students to create the acoustic to help students to feel appreciated. Some teacher will first create their own book and share it with the children. Teachers and students can create a word bank with adjectives beginning with each letter of the alphabet, and then they can use these to create their own acoustic. Their books, their to create their own essays. When these acoustics are created, children must be given the opportunity to share it with families and friends. Students can start their acoustic with each other in getting to know each other better by playing an activity, by using these words to describe one another. In the first and second language acquisition, I have learned about the milestone in language development: phonology, lesion, and grammar. The part that was really interesting is the first real word from a child appear at the end of the first year of a normal child. I did know that. I must say that I know that now, and I've learned that throughout the lesson that I've read. Children go through different stages of development, and these stages are from stages 1 to 6. In the theories of language development, the Navis Linguist Theory, Naomi Chomsky, infants are born with a language acquisition device that make each child biologically prepared to acquire language. I have also learned about the behaviorist learning theory, the cognitive theory, and also the theory explaining the second language. The theory also speaks about how children acquire language, and all children need to hear is a language enough and they will develop the habit of speaking. Just like if a child hear you say the word good, good, good all the time and keep on repeating it, finally the child will start saying the word and follow you, just like you model and the child will follow. The behaviorist theory mainly focuses on observable behavior. The behaviorist theory defines learning as the acquisition of new behaviors based on the environment condition. The social interaction theory is an explanation of language development, focusing on the importance of social interaction between the child and a mature adult. It also speaks about connectionism. This is when the child learns association between sounds, sequences, and words and meaning by hearing them in the environment. The Carson's monitor model explains that a child acquires as we are exposed to sample of the language in much the same way as child acquire their first language. Also, in the cognitive development perspective, some theories compare the mind to a computer, comparing language acquisition to the capacity of the computer. In information processing, this is the building up of knowledge for speaking and understanding. In the competition model, in this model, the learner will understand how to use cues such as words, order, grammatical markers, and the relationship between words in a sentence. In the interaction hypothesis, the speaker will make changes to their speech and interaction pattern to make learners feel more comfortable to take in the speech or conversation and give corrective feedback during the interaction. The social cultural perspective. In this theory, learning occurs through social interaction between adults, and in the interlanguage is based on the theory that there is psychological structure in the brain which is activated when one attempts to learn a second language. The U-shaped learning language occur from one stage to another in a series of steps or in a sequence in the context of language learning. In Chapter 3, Getting Started in the Second Language, when children start learning a new language, they will sometimes use their own language in the second language. When they realize that their own language doesn't work with the second language, in this situation, the child will end up being nonverbal, meaning they will stop talking and just probably look at you for a period of time and try to better understanding of the second language. Children will start to use words or phrases in their new language. This will develop productive use of the second language. Sometimes children find themselves in social settings in which those around them speak a different language. In this situation, children will only have two choices. When they end up in the social situation, they will either have to try to speak the language they already know or to stop talking. Some children will continue speaking their own language regardless of not getting any answers. So regardless of nobody answering them, they will still continue to say whatever they want to say. In the dilingual course, children will speak their own language as if the others will understand. So they will speak their language just like they think the others know what they're saying, regardless of the other children do not understand what the other child is trying to say. The teacher in the class was talking about egg, and one of her Chinese students didn't understand what she said, but the teacher still continued to speak in English, regardless the Chinese boy did not understand what she was saying. There is a nonverbal period. This is a period where children are faced with social situation in their own language is abandoned and attempt to speak their own language to people who do not understand them. Children will enter in a silent period. Children will try to have conversation with those who speak their own language. A study was conducted of a Greek boy who has been brought to the United States. When he was 2. He attended an English childcare for 5 mornings for 1.5 years before he began to speak any English. Finally, in the spring of the second year, he began to use some English. By 4, almost 5, his English was well advanced. The mute or silent period many children face the situation. There is a nonverbal phase. Although children don't talk for a period of time, they will find alternate ways to communicate with those around them, like using gestures. When the teacher in the chapter, when the teacher asked Ling Ling, "What's that?" and she shrugged her shoulder, she shook her head. These are all methods of nonverbal communication, which is common among second language learners. There was another child when he was playing with the water table and he needs someone to help him. So he was there standing and looking because he need help. But Marian, who he made a gesture to, she was busy. So so he walked over to the water table and get the apron, and Marian tried to help him get ready for the water play. Adults have to try their best to understand what is the second language learners trying to say, because sometimes they give limited information. So you as a teacher, you need to try your best to understand what the child is saying and try your best to help that child. If the child need help and that second language learner is looking for is not available, then they have to do it themselves or they have to forget about it. So if they're trying to get help and nobody's understanding what they're saying or what they're trying to do, they will either have to forget about it or try to do it themselves. In this stage, you have protesting. Sometimes the second language learner is upset or disgust about a particular situation. Example, when Naisha and Leonard was playing with the Legos, Naisha reached over and touched one of Leonardo's, and Leonardo started feeling disgust, took Naisha's hands away from it. So he was feeling upset. You probably could look at his face and see that he was really upset. Sometimes they joke about things. Second learners can communicate nonverbal by doing things to make people laugh. So they probably make funny faces and you will laugh. In the intimacy nonverbal behavior. In this situation, second language learner will use gestures like pointing fingers and mimicking, and teacher will need to provide learners with encouragement to solve this problem. And there's also the social consequences of nonverbal communication. Second language learners sometimes are treated like infants because they remain nonverbal, mean they're not talking for a longer period of time. In this case in the book, Andrew was trying to help Ling Ling use an high-pitched voice. So he probably say something out loud, then he probably say it in a soft voice like he's talking to a baby. And Pierre was a perfect example in the classroom when he was ignored when he tried to play run and chase in the classroom. So he tried to play the game with the other kids and they ignored him. And the second language learners are sometimes ignored, but because they have not developed enough English to participate in the social activities. In Leonardo and Naisha's situation, like Ling Ling, they use nonverbal communication to respond. The nonverbal communication allows children to participate successfully in interaction. The use of nonverbal communication helps second language learners to communicate even before they can use the verbal form of language. Nonverbal communication is effective, but it can also be used in certain situations. Second language learners use nonverbal behaviors to get attention, requesting, protesting, and attention getting. In attention getting, the second language learner will hold up or show an object to another person to get their attention. So interestingly, all these children use it is so interesting how these children can use ways to communicate. Naisha got up from the circle while they were singing at circle time, the wheels on the bus, and she got up and she walked over to where the buses were and she took out the bus back to the circle and she showed everybody that she knew exactly what they were talking about. And requesting is another one. Second language learners sometimes request help using nonverbal communication. Example, when Boyson was interested in playing at the water table and he saw the smack and he walked over, everyone else was busy that he needs to request their attention. So he walked over to the smack and he took it up and he tried to help himself, and one of his friends helped him to put the smack on. Thank you very much.